The apartment wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. No elevator, no granite countertops, no skyline views. But to Isabella, it was sacred. This was the home her father chose, the place he carried her into on his shoulders when she was 5, giggling arms wrapped around his neck, asking if the bedroom had a window just for her books. The soft floral wallpaper in the hallway, he picked it, cut each strip by hand. The bookshelf in the corner, he built it one Sunday morning while humming an old Sinatra song, using wood he sanded himself. Even now, years after he passed, she could still hear his voice echo faintly when the floor creaked. There was a scent in the air, faint like aged cologne and worn paperbacks, that always made her stop, close her eyes, and breathe it in like a prayer. People say a home is just 4 walls and a roof, but to Isabella, this apartment was a beating heart. It held her father's touch in every nail, every shelf, every silent comfort she needed after he was gone. When she sat by the window with her tea or brushed her fingers across the bookshelf, she wasn't just remembering, she was still with him. This wasn't property, this was soul. Diego entered Isabella's life like a slow, comforting sunrise. Not flashy, not dramatic, just warm, steady, familiar in a way that made her believe he'd always been meant to find her. They met at a gallery opening. She was admiring a black and white photo of a father holding his daughter's hand in the snow. He walked up beside her and said, "I think it's beautiful, not because of the photo, but because of how still you're standing." She laughed, not the polite kind, the real kind, the kind that sneaks up on you and makes you feel lighter. Diego was charming, but not loud, funny, but never trying too hard. He listened when she spoke, asked questions, remembered small things. And when he saw her apartment for the first time, he didn't blink at the creaky floor or the worn wallpaper. He looked around and said, "I don't care where we live, Isa. As long as I'm with you, I'm home." That one sentence wrapped itself around her heart like a soft blanket. She didn't think about paperwork or ownership or protecting what her father left behind. Why would she? He loved her. He respected her. He saw the apartment not as hers, but as theirs. At least that's what she believed. And isn't that what love is? Trusting someone with the parts of you that feel the most fragile, even if they're not strong enough to carry it. The first time Sophia visited their apartment, she brought flowers. The second time, she brought questions. At first, Isabella told herself it was sweet, that maybe Diego's mother just wanted to connect. But the third, fourth, and fifth time, it didn't feel like visiting. It felt like monitoring. Sophia had a way of appearing without warning, always uninvited, always with something passive-aggressive in hand. A cake, a casserole, or a comment that felt like it came with claws. Still no renovations. I thought Diego would have fixed the kitchen by now. You know, Isa, in our family, we always put both names on the deed. It's just respectful. Her voice was warm, but her eyes never matched. They were sharp, always scanning, calculating. One afternoon, while sipping tea from Isabella's favorite porcelain cup, Sophia asked, "Tell me something. Isn't it a little odd that Diego's name isn't on the property?" Isabella forced a smile. "We're married. Everything's shared." But Sophia just nodded slowly, a smile tugging at her lips, the kind that didn't feel like agreement. It felt like warning. After she left that day, Isabella stared at the door for a long time, not because she missed her mother-in-law, but because for the first time, she didn't feel alone in her own home. She felt watched. It started as a whisper, a quiet, uneasy flutter in her chest whenever Sophia spoke. Isabella noticed it the way Diego looked away whenever his mother hinted at the apartment, or how he changed the subject with a smile, like he was smoothing over a wrinkle no one else could see. She noticed, but she didn't confront. Because when you're in love, your heart negotiates with your mind. It tells you, don't be dramatic. He wouldn't do that. You're just being sensitive. Isabella told herself the same things, even when the discomfort grew, even when Sophia's visits felt more like warnings than warmth. Deep down, she knew something wasn't right, but she loved Diego. And love, real love, the kind that's tender and trusting, teaches women to second-guess their instincts. Why? Because we're told that good women don't question too much, that loyalty means silence, that suspicion means failure. So Isabella smiled. She poured more tea, she tucked the unease into a quiet corner of her heart, and tried to convince herself that love was enough. It started with a folder. Just a plain navy blue folder Diego placed on the kitchen table one morning as he kissed Isabella on the cheek. "Babe, can you do me a favor and sign a few things?" He was wearing his usual crisp button-up shirt, coffee in hand, already glancing at his phone. It's just boring stuff. Bank forms, tax updates, family paperwork. Isabella nodded. Of course, she was used to this rhythm now. Diego was always in a rush, always late for some meeting. Always charming his way out the door. He'd lean down, flash that familiar boyish smile, and say, "You're better at this stuff anyway. Just sign where I marked. I trust you." At first, she found it sweet that he trusted her so much. It felt like partnership, like love. But then came the second folder, and the third. And with each one, the papers got longer, the fine print smaller, his tone more hurried. Sometimes she'd ask, "What's this part?" And he'd brush it off with a quick laugh. "Legalese, just ignore it. You know I'd never let you sign anything bad." So she signed. Not because she understood, but because she trusted him more than she trusted her own curiosity. And that's how it begins for so many. Not with betrayal, but with a pen, and love that made you blind. It was a Thursday afternoon. The light from the window hit the kitchen table just right, warm, golden, soft. Diego placed another folder in front of her. "Just one more set of forms," he said, already buttoning his sleeves, already halfway out the door. Isabella picked up the pen. But something made her pause. A block of text at the bottom of the last page, much smaller than the rest. Tiny, tightly packed. Legal terms she couldn't quite parse. Words like assignment, waiver, irrevocable. Her brow furrowed. "What's this part?" she asked. Diego didn't even look back. He was grabbing his keys. "Just boilerplate, stuff lawyers put in everything. Don't stress. I trust you. Just sign it, babe." That line again. "I trust you." The irony, she trusted him. Enough to ignore the knot forming in her stomach. Enough to tell herself, if something were wrong, he would never let me sign it. So she signed. And in that moment, she handed away more than her signature. She handed away her doubt, her instinct, her right to question. And somewhere across the table, Diego smiled not with warmth, but with strategy. She didn't tell Diego, she couldn't, but something about that last folder, the fine print, the rushed tone, the way he avoided eye contact, had finally pushed her over the edge. So one afternoon, while Diego was meeting friends at the bar, Isabella made an appointment. She walked into a small law office tucked between a bakery and a nail salon. Cheap chairs, dusty blinds. A receptionist who didn't look up. When the lawyer finally entered, he looked bored before she even began. She explained everything, the apartment, her father's will, the documents Diego had her sign, her growing fear that something wasn't right. He nodded politely, glanced at the forms half-heartedly, then said, "Well, these things can be complicated. You'd really need a property lawyer, not me. I mostly do traffic stuff." She blinked. "But can you at least tell me if I still own my home?" He shrugged. "Maybe. Probably. Depends. I don't want to say the wrong thing." That was it. No answers, no direction, just empty words and indifference. Isabella stood, thanked him with numb politeness, and walked out into the noise of the street. But the world felt quieter than ever. That walk home, it felt like the longest of her life. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just walked, one slow, aching step after another. And when she stepped into her apartment, closed the door behind her, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a place that might already be gone. The apartment was quiet when she stepped in. Too quiet. Isabella had come home earlier than planned, her lawyer meeting a total failure. Her heart was heavy, her mind exhausted. She was halfway to the kitchen when she heard voices. Diego's voice, low, quick. Sophia's voice, sharper. The kitchen door was cracked open just enough to let words slip out not meant for her ears. She froze, her breath caught, and then she heard it. She doesn't even read what she signs. It was Diego, that familiar voice, now smug, arrogant, unrecognizable. She trusts me completely. It's almost too easy. Isabella's hands began to tremble. She stepped back into the shadow of the hallway, pulling out her phone, switching on the voice recorder with a shaky thumb. Sophia's voice cut through next, cold, precise. Good. One more signature and she's done. A pause. Then, that apartment should have never been just hers. You're her husband, Diego, not a guest. Isabella felt like the air had been knocked out of her. They weren't guessing. They weren't confused. They were planning. Together. And the home her father built with love was just a target, one signature away from being stolen. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just walked slowly to the bedroom and collapsed. The mattress caught her body, but nothing could catch the weight in her chest. Her lungs felt locked. Her throat burned. She stared at the ceiling, frozen. Inside her head, noise. Sophia's voice circling like smoke. Love fades, money lasts. Snapshots from the past flashed like lightning. Diego smiling over pancakes. Diego holding her hand at her father's funeral. Diego whispering, "You're my everything." Then Diego, laughing in the kitchen. She doesn't even read what she signs. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Her fingers clenched the blanket. Her body was in bed, but her soul was unraveling. How long had this been going on? Was it from the beginning? Had any of it ever been real? Sophia's voice again. She's too soft. She'll believe whatever you feed her. Isabella turned her face into the pillow and let the tears come. Quiet, violent, breathless sobs. The kind that leave no sound, only silence. And the realization that her marriage was already gone. Memory used to comfort her. Now it cuts like glass. Lying in bed, Isabella closed her eyes, but her mind refused to sleep. Instead, it played scenes she didn't ask to see. The first time Diego hugged her outside the art gallery in the rain, the way he held her coat closed with both hands and whispered, "Let's stay like this." The first time Sophia entered the apartment complimenting the wallpaper, but glancing at every corner like she was measuring it. The tea, the smiles, the innocent questions about the deed, all of it was a setup. She remembered Diego cooking breakfast shirtless, humming her dad's favorite Sinatra song. She thought it was romantic. Now she wasn't sure he even knew the words. She remembered the night he held her while she cried after losing her job. Did he really care, or was he just playing the long game? Every single memory, once sacred, now sat under a spotlight, scrutinized, picked apart, and one brutal truth kept rising to the surface. The man she trusted with her heart had been stealing her soul one smile at a time. The woman who woke up the next morning was not the same woman who collapsed in bed the night before. Isabella moved with purpose. No tears, no hesitation. Her first call was to a different law office, one with real credentials, real experience, and real grit. She didn't care how much it cost. She cared about what was hers. The lawyer, a sharp, focused woman named Lena Cho, listened, really listened, then said just 2 words, "Let's begin." Over the next few days, Isabella moved like a ghost, present but unreadable. She had every document reviewed, every contract dissected, every signature checked for hidden clauses. The moment Lena confirmed what Isabella feared, that her property had been put at risk through Diego's manipulation, Isabella signed new forms. She revoked his power of attorney. She updated the deed structure. Quietly, legally. She even made plans to move all her assets into a private trust. And the audio, she transferred the kitchen recording onto 3 separate drives. One stayed with her, one with Lena, one in a locked box at her bank. Isabella wasn't playing defense anymore. She was building her counterattack. And for the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. The door clicked shut behind her. Isabella stepped into the apartment like a storm wearing silence. Diego and Sofia were sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out, coffee cups still steaming. Sofia was mid-sentence. Diego looked up, startled. Isabella didn't flinch. She walked slowly, deliberately, until she stood in the doorway. And then, calmly, she said the words that shattered everything. "Yes, I'm home, and I heard everything." Diego froze. His face went pale. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to speak but couldn't. Sofia's cup rattled slightly in her saucer. Her eyes flickered, not with guilt, but with calculation. Isabella didn't move. She let the silence stretch, let it hurt. Then she stepped forward and dropped a small USB stick onto the table. "You should both know," she said, voice steady, eyes locked on them. "This recording is now protected by legal counsel." Diego stood up too fast, knocking the chair back. "Wait, Isa, listen, it's not what—" She raised her hand. "Don't say my name." Her voice was ice, her face unreadable. "You wanted one more signature, right?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table. "These are divorce papers, signed, irrevocable." Sofia blinked. Diego looked like he'd been slapped. Isabella turned toward the door, paused, then added, "This apartment was built on love. You tried to trade it for greed. Now it's mine again, and you are both out." She walked away, not in tears, but in power. The apartment was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel threatening. It felt like exhale. Isabella sat by the window. The late afternoon light spilled across her face, warm and golden, the way it used to feel when she was a child reading fairy tales on that same spot. Her fingers reached out gently, brushing the edge of the old wooden bookshelf, the one her father built with his own hands. It still stood firm, still held her stories, still smelled faintly of sawdust and time. Isabella closed her eyes and smiled. Not the kind of smile you fake at dinner, not the kind that hides pain. This one was quiet, soft, real, because this apartment was never just a place. It was memory. It was love nailed into wood, stitched into curtains, whispered through creaky floorboards. They tried to reduce it to paper, to legal claims and forged intentions, but they forgot. You can't steal a soul. And this place, it had one, her father's, and now her own. If you've ever been lied to, used, betrayed by someone who once held your hand and promised forever, this is for you. Don't let anyone define your worth with the stroke of a pen. You are not measured by the contracts you signed in love, or the silence you kept to preserve peace. Real love doesn't hide behind rushed signatures and fine print. It stands in the light. It welcomes clarity. Only the manipulative require shadows. And if someone tries to dim your light, it's because they were never meant to stand in it. You are not naive for trusting. You were loyal. They were the liar. And now you get to rewrite the ending. Not with pain, but with power. The deepest betrayal isn't when someone takes from you. It's when they pretend to love you while doing it. Isabella's story is a reminder that love without honesty is a trap waiting to close. In life, don't let guilt silence your instincts. Don't confuse manipulation with care. True love won't rush you. True family won't corner you. And most of all, protect what holds your soul. Whether it's your home, your peace, or your truth, never sign it away for someone who treats your trust like currency. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever loved deeply, trusted blindly, or stood back up after being broken, then Pieces of Soul is your home. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that don't just entertain, they remind you who you are. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. You never know whose soul you might help save today.